All right. Hi, everybody. I know it's going to take a moment or two for everybody to be in and have a seat. So please feel free to go get yourself some water, some tea, whatever it is for you to feel comfortable. And we'll plan to get going once I see that the numbers stabilize within the Zoom. If you're watching this on Facebook, hi. I know that this will be a bit of a fun one today, and I hope that everything internet-wise ends up staying with me as I'm out here in the backyard. So it looks like it is starting to slow down a bit. Let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the All Things ECE with ELV webinar series. Must let you know, this is actually one of the webinars that I've been most anxious to have for a bit, mostly because I'll have to be doing something outside of my typical daily role of talking. And so today we are actually going to be cooking with you, and we're going to be doing meal appeal, helping, kids learn how to get the things growing seasonally that is actually of interest to them. And so we're joined by Amber Troutman and Brigid Hunt, who are both program associates with Cooking Matters and Share Our Strengths. And so before I dive in, I do know just from looking at the registrants that we did have a couple people who might be a little unfamiliar with me or with ELV. So Early Learning Ventures, we are a shared services nonprofit. So we sort of dive into everything in the ECE world, as evidenced by today. And so what we typically spend our time doing is working on a child care management system. So basically technology to make your day-to-day life easier inside your business. I do want to highlight as well, everybody on this webinar today is from Colorado, it looks like. So we have a free resource platform with all kinds of templates and resources and links out to Cooking Matters and folks like that. And so we'll include in the post-webinar messaging how you can get all of this information. And then also, if you are unfamiliar with us, we do a weekly interview series. We're constantly posting about opportunities available across, we put out a lot of content about the child care tax credit. So please follow us on social media if you're not already. All right, so I'm going to be turning it over to Amber and Brigid, but unlike usual, I'm not just going to sit in the back and act as your moderator. I actually have Milena here with us. She will be moderating both the Zoom and the Facebook, so please give her some patience if, it's a flurry. And then I have my dog, Oscar, monitoring the chickens, so that should be all safe and ready to go. And let's do this. I know my wife is excited by this one. She's out of town, and every time she's out of town, I have a tendency to sometimes forget to eat. So this is like my visual video proof that today we are making lunch together. So let's get going. I'm going to stop my share and feel free to start in on your side, Amber.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm going to share my screen. But as I'm doing that, I can introduce myself and then I'll let Brigid introduce herself as well. My name is Amber Troutman and I've been with Cooking Matters for over 6 years now. And typically I offer these childcare professional trainings across the state of Colorado. They were once 8-hour day trainings and I got to travel all over doing them. And then this last year, we've been doing them online, which has been quite the adventure, but also really fun because we're able to meet people like you in all parts of the state and even outside the state of Colorado. And then I'll pass it to Brigid while I get some stuff set up.
Thanks, Amber. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Brigid Hunt, and as Michael said, I'm a program associate for Cooking Matters Colorado, but I'm actually located in Durango, Colorado. So I'm the associate for the Southwest region. Like Amber, I've been leading these Cooking Matters for childcare professionals trainings for Cooking Matters, but in addition to that, also all of our other programming as well. I'm originally from a farm girl from Virginia, so my favorite season is the growing season. This is definitely one of the more exciting programming that we've done lately. I definitely agree with Michael, so happy to be here.
Great. And I see some are already introducing themselves, but we would love to hear from you guys too, if you want to chat in where you're watching in from. And also, we would also love to hear from you. What are some of your biggest challenges to introducing healthy foods to kids in your care? That'll help us kind of think about what we're talking about today as I dive in. So feel free to chat that in. What are some of the biggest challenges to introducing healthy foods to kids in your care? So today we are going to focus on some ways to prepare and introduce healthy foods to kids in an appealing way. And we'll start off by talking a little bit about what's going on in those early years and why kids are picky. And then we'll talk about a variety of strategies you can use to get kids to try and enjoy healthy foods. Today, Brigid will show you a recipe she's had some success with. And if you have ingredients ready, you're welcome to join alongside her. Of course, this is also being recorded, so you can always go out, grab those ingredients and cook alongside her later on too. So let's go ahead and dive in. And I'm seeing some introductions come in. Great, keep those coming in and we'll keep an eye on those. So let's just take a moment first to ground ourselves in what is happening in those early years of a child's life. While we continue to learn and grow throughout our lifetime, the earliest years of a child's life are a rich opportunity to instill healthy eating habits because there's a ton of brain development happening in those early years. And so as caregivers, we really want to ensure that kids are getting all of the vitamins and nutrients they need to grow their brains and bodies, and also to help them create healthy eating habits that will carry through their adult life. And then I also think it's really helpful to remember that picky eating is very normal in these early years. So children naturally go through a developmental phase beginning around 18 to 24 months, where they become more weary of new foods. And this is around the same time that they might recognize new people and experience stranger danger. That might be something we're more familiar with, but they can also kind of have that same fear with food. So to help kids learn to try and like new foods, we focus on repeated exposure. So exposure and exploring of foods can lead to familiarity, which will hopefully lead to a child actually eating a new food and eventually liking it. And exposures can include all of the exploratory actions listed here that you see. So it can be poking things, just seeing it, smelling it, squishing it. It may be them seeing you eat it or seeing it at the grocery store, the farmer's market, and you're in your garden. Those are all exposures. And those all might happen before a child actually puts it in their mouth, chews it, and eats it. And then after that comes hopefully a development for preference. And so we really just encourage you to be patient and persistent in offering healthy new foods to kids during these years. So just checking the chat. I love all the comments that are coming through. So as mentioned, today we're going to be focusing on how to get kids to try new foods. And ideally, these new foods are healthy foods for strong growth and development. So here are just some quick guidelines for how to ensure that meals are healthy. We want to focus on including whole grains, adding lots of whole fruits and vegetables, choosing lean dairy and protein options, and also thinking about ways that we can reduce fat, salt, and sugar when we prepare foods. We're not going to go into details about what makes these foods healthy today, but if you are interested in learning, please contact us at Cooking Matters and we can get you into another one of our trainings called Choosing Healthy Foods for Kids that really focuses on that childhood nutrition. So I have another question for chat. Just everyone can take a moment to think about your favorite food. So just see that in your mind there. What makes it appealing to you? So as you're thinking about that, really the same things that make foods appealing to us as adults are true for children. So if we don't find a food that we are serving appealing, most likely a child will not either. So we want to think about all of these factors when planning and preparing our snacks and meals for the kids in our care. Yeah, so I'm seeing the foods are colorful versus the things we smell. Great. keep those comments coming in. So these are the things we want to think about. We want to think about the appearance. How can we try to make the food more visually appealing to children? So yeah, thinking about the color, thinking about the shapes, the textures, the way it's arranged, all of those things. If it looks appealing to us, it's probably going to look appealing to those kiddos too. And then we want to think about flavor, exposing kids to a variety of flavors. So the more flavors we expose children to, the more likely they are going to integrate a variety of foods and flavors into their diets. Humans are naturally have a predisposition towards sweet and salty and away from that bitter, but that can be changed with exposure. So just helping kids get exposure to all of those flavors will help them have a wider diet as they grow older as well. Yeah. And then we also want to think about smell. Food aromas can influence taste and also be associated with memories. I'm sure we can all think back on, as I'm thinking about this, for some reason, like those flavors or the smells of garlic and onions immediately makes me hungry and makes me feel all warm and comforted from lots of spaghetti dinners that I probably had growing up. So you can consider using some of these herbs and spices to incorporate familiar or enticing smells to new foods as well. And then we also want to consider cultural significance. We know that we don't all eat the same foods, and that should really be celebrated. So consider the ways that your program can help children learn about foods across cultures. You can talk about how we all come from different backgrounds and have different food experiences and food preferences. We don't all have to like the exact same foods, but how we can all come together to learn and enjoy food together. And this really just comes from creating an atmosphere that is exploratory of foods and makes it kind of an adventure of trying those new foods. So ultimately, the biggest strategies we can stress here today is including variety in your menus. So look over your menus and identify where there might be opportunities to serve the same food in a different way or introduce new foods, new forms of food. So maybe fresh, frozen, or canned. Consider how a child may like, a frozen form of a food, perhaps more than a fresh or a canned, or vice versa, or new combinations of food. And with that, we are going to try some of these strategies out. So we're just going to talk about the roadmap and get us into our demo here.
All right, thanks, Amber. So the roadmap to healthy meals. A lot of small changes can make a really big difference for our kids' health. And to create healthier meals, we can make these small changes within all of these 4 activities that you see listed here. And this involves getting food on a child's plate. It includes menu planning, shopping, preparing the food, and then of course, serving the food to your kids. So I'm going to briefly run through the first 2 before I get into my preparation. So the first is our planning phase. Creating positive and healthy meals for kids always is going to start with good planning. So we want to consider a few things when we're planning out our menus. And these things will help us ensure that we have what we need to create variety in our menus to make sure that our menus are healthy. So today, I'm making a traditional fan favorite. I'm adjusting it to meet my budget and loading it with seasonal produce. I'm making mini pizzas with a homemade tomato sauce. And when I'm thinking about planning this, I want to make sure that I'm utilizing whole grains and whole foods over processed ones. So I have my mini pizzas are going to be English muffins, and these are whole grain English muffins. That means that kids are getting more fiber and less sugar. They're going to stay fuller, longer, and that's really important. Also thinking about utilizing different things. So sometimes pizza will have, pepperoni is a really good topping. If we want to make a healthier adjustment, we could use turkey pepperoni or top it with some different things. I love this. I love doing mini pizzas with kids because everyone can decorate their own pizza as well, which is a lot of fun. And it can provide a lot of color. If you think about the My Plate model, you can get all 5 of the food groups onto pizza as well, which is really, really cool. Secondly, we can be mindful when we're shopping and choosing the foods for our planned menu, choosing foods that are healthy and appealing, thinking about, like Amber said, textures, colors. If you use any vendors at your center or for your home-based center, that's really important to be clear on specifications if you're doing ordering. For my shopping, like I said, I'm trying to use seasonal produce. So I have zucchini and also summer squash that I chose to use instead of carrots inside of my recipe. This allows me to be more budget conscious because these are seasonal items, which means they're going to be a lot more affordable than out of season items. They're also going to be fresh, easy to find, and super, super tasty, which of course is just as important. It is important also to remember though that it's totally fine to use things like canned items. So here I have crushed tomatoes that I got out of a can. I chose a can that had no salt added, and that is, canned items are a perfectly fine option to utilize rather than fresh. We always know that what we want sometimes is not accessible. So we want to make sure that we're using things that we have access to, and also, again, sticking to our budget. Fun fact though, tomatoes are one of those things that when they are cooked and canned, they can almost be more nutritious than store-bought tomatoes, because unless you're getting a tomato off the vine or at the farmer's market, chances are they've traveled a really, really long way to get to you. So keep in mind, canned items, frozen items, they're picked and they're processed at their peak of freshness, which is their peak of nutritive value. So as long as you're getting cans that, fruits are canned in water or juice rather than syrup, and then our vegetables with no salt added, totally fine substitutes if you don't have any fresh offerings in your area. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and get started on my preparation by first just letting you all know, again, I have 2 recipes that I chose for today. First is the tomato sauce, which I've made some edits to suit my budget and my needs today. And then also the mini pizzas that, again, I edited a few things to suit my needs today. While I'm grabbing my things out, Michael, do you want to tell me what items and ingredients you chose to use today, or if maybe you're following the recipe exactly?
So the main substitutions I have are, 1, I am going to not be using the English muffins. I'm going to be using zucchini as my base for the actual pizzas. And then 2, all of my tomatoes are so very close to being ripe, but they're not. So I got store-bought ones because I did not know about the canned thing. So whoops, and thank you. So besides that, no, I chose some charcuterie meats for myself because, hey, it's my lunch, and some mozzarella cheese. So I'm all set.
I wish I had done that. Sounds really good.
Will you be cooking as well?
Yes, I have a lot prepared right now, but I will go ahead, and if you don't have anything, chopped up or prepped, I'm going to cue you up so you can start doing that right away. So first things first, we have our mini pizza recipe, which calls for a tomato sauce out of a can. But what we did instead is we decided to use our Cooking Matters tomato sauce recipe in lieu of that can of tomato sauce, because we know there are a lot of people right now that do have tomatoes or will about to have tomatoes accessible, and making tomato sauce, especially if you can have kids in the kitchen with you to help prepare, can be really fun because it's a lot of mashing, etc. So if you want to get started on your tomato sauce recipe first, Mike, it calls for onion, garlic, carrot, canola oil, basil, oregano, salt, pepper, and crushed tomato. Now, again, you can use a can of tomatoes, but if you have regular fresh tomatoes, that's fine. You want to go ahead and just give them a dice. I'm going to switch my camera around now and show you. I've got a tomato right here, right? And what I did is, you can notice things, produce rolls around a lot. That can be really dangerous. So what I did with my tomato is I gave it a cut to give it a flat edge. That way it's not rolling around on me anymore. Then you can have two halves to work with. You're going to slice, and we call this sticks to bricks. Get the core out. I'm gonna slice my tomato into sticks and then turn it and slice it into bricks. And that is a proper dice. Doesn't need to be any smaller than that, because when this cooks down, it's gonna get soft and it's gonna get mushy. So you really don't have to worry about these pieces being too small or too big. That's about fine. So once you get your tomato all chopped up, and I'm going to be swiveling between my directions and my camera, so hope that doesn't bother anybody. Once we have our tomato chopped up, we also want to chop up our onion. Now, I did that beforehand, thinking of my preparation. I cry a lot when I chop my onions, so I didn't want to do that on camera. So I have my onions in here, and I have 1 clove of garlic. I just roughly chopped them up. They're about between a mince and a dice. Once you have that done, you're going to put your canola oil into your pot with your onions. And I'm going to get that started on low while I do my garlic demonstration. Going to turn that on. Now, Mike, I should have asked you this in the very beginning. Are you going to be grilling your zucchini? Or are you going to be, how are you prepping your zucchini pizza base?
Yeah, I was planning on, I actually had a question about this, is if I should have the skin on the bottom still, or if you were thinking it would be better to have like a, both front and back being purely the actual like flesh, meat, I don't know, whatever you call the inside of zucchini. So I was just going to cut it in half.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that if you're leaving the skin on, it would be great. You could give it a grill to kind of break down the firmness of it, or you could saute it. You can also keep it raw. That's totally fine. I always recommend leaving the skin. For example, I grated my squash and my zucchini, and I left the skin on. You can kind of see there's darker and lighter pieces. I leave it on because it offers extra nutrients in addition to the, fleshy part of the produce as well, and nutrients and fiber. And that is something that's just so important, not just for kids, but adults as well, that we tend to forget about. So if you can leave the skin on, leave it on. If it's going to create some trouble having the kids eat it, because like Amber said earlier, texture is important, right? If it's going to create issues, go ahead and remove it. You can always, next time you make it, try it with it. My bell pepper, I just cut into some thin slices here. Remember, when you're chopping bell pepper, once you get it into manageable pieces to chop into the inside of it. The inside of it is going to give your knife a lot better grip than that sort of smooth outside. So you always want to turn your pepper inside out like that to cut. That surface is easier to cut with a knife. Just a little tip there. The peppers are called for in our tomato sauce, but I'm actually just chopping them like this, and I'm going to use it as a smiley face when I'm putting toppings on my pizza, because I kind of like the crunchiness of the peppers on top. If you're worried about how your kids will feel about that, you can dice this, put this in with your onions, put it in the tomato sauce, or you can saute these, soften them up, and then you can put them on as toppings, whichever you'd like. I'm using it the way that I like to use it. And then lastly, we definitely want garlic in there, like Amber said, you think of spaghetti, that like homemade, those smells. Garlic is a super important ingredient in spaghetti, Italian food, pizza. Using the flat part of my knife and with my palm, giving it a smash. And then you can probably use your hands, but I usually like to help it out with my blade. Cut just one end off, and then that skin should come off pretty easy. There you go, should pop right out. And then I'm going to just give this a quick chop. I only put a very small one into my pan earlier, so I want to put a little extra.
You know, when you're talking about your favorite food, thing I was going to say is like, I feel every time I'm really excited for something that's being cooked, it always turns out that what's being cooked at that moment is just garlic and onions. So anything with garlic and onions in it, I'm about.
Right. You're like, maybe those are my favorite foods, garlic and onion. All right, I can start. My onions and garlic are starting to sizzle a little. Gonna give it a little bit of a stir over here. And these don't have to cook down like crazy. You just want to sort of, when they start to get a little bit translucent is when you're all set. But that's in there, which is great. Then the tomato sauce, like I said, super easy. I took my tomatoes, or you can take your tomatoes and kind of crush them with a fork, you know, just like this. And that is a proper crush. That is plenty. You don't have to process this unless you really prefer a very smooth tomato sauce, but just crushing it with a fork, that is perfectly fine. This is salt-free crushed tomato that I got from the store. So I put the tiniest dash of salt, half a teaspoon of dried oregano, and then the recipe calls for a teaspoon of dried basil, but I had fresh basil in the garlic. So what I did is I got 4 basil leaves. You want to make sure if you're using fresh herbs, you're using a lot more of the fresh than you would with the dried, because dried herbs are much more condensed. So I just minced it up, put it in there, and I'm just going to pour this right inside of where my onions and garlic are cooking. And that's it. Like I said, I put a little bit of salt. You want to put a dash of pepper in there. If you have any favorite herbs or herbs in your garden, Michael, what herbs do you have in your garden?
I got all of them basically. Rosemary, sage, oregano, everything. Yeah, basil. My basil leaves are from here. But I did have a question actually, if you wouldn't mind going off script for a second. So I'm about to put the zucchinis on the grill to roast them a bit. Should I season them with anything, or should I just roast them plain? And if I was to season with the things that we already had, what should I add?
Once again, it's all about preference. But I find that if you do a tiny little dash of salt in each thing, that flavor is going to really pop in every bite. And then you don't have to overdo it with salt afterward or in the sauce, etc. So okay. Just a small pinch.
All right.
And I think I learned that from Gordon Ramsay.
I'm just tracking a little bit behind it. I'm catching up fast though. So that's
okay. As I said, I did a lot of prep beforehand so that I could talk and not have to, you know, sometimes it's hard doing multiple things at once. So I know when I cook with my niece, I had a programming last week and my niece just turned 6, July 1st, and she wanted to help me prep the demo for my class. And I will say, you know, it requires a lot of patience. A prep that should have taken about 30 minutes definitely took an hour, which is twice the amount of time, but it was a lot of fun. Definitely worth it. But I do appreciate that when you're prepping with kids, it does require patience. You have to realize that, you know, if they're not good at grading and they want to help, let them dice it up. That just means that you're going to have to cook those things first before you throw the graded parts in, right? You can definitely have kids help out with these steps. I will say, changing my camera view again, the mashing of the tomatoes is an awesome job for kids if you want to get them involved in the kitchen. They take the fork, they smash it, and then they put it into a bowl, which is super simple and easy. If they are already onto knife skills, you know, keep an eye, but they can chop peppers. And if they want to grate, another tool I use today is my grater. Grating can always be a really great job for kids as well. Just make sure that, you know, they don't have their fingers stretching over the produce there. That's always something you want to keep an eye on. So I've got my tomato sauce going. A few simple ingredients. The only difference is that rather than putting the zucchini and the squash sauteed, layered onto my pizza, I'm actually going to take my zucchini and squash and I'm going to throw it into my tomato sauce. Would love if anyone has any ideas why I'm choosing to do that. Any guesses there? This is something I love to do for one very particular reason.
See, I'm like one step above a kid. I can make like 5 meals very well. So I am our stand-in kid today, I guess. So I'll say, is it for a marinade? Are you just trying to get it in there early for that?
Well, honestly, it's because one, I know that sometimes our kiddos, especially for like, oh, pizza, when I eat pizza, I just eat cheese and pepperoni. That's how I eat pizza. That's what pizza is. That's kind of how my niece's picky eating works. Kids don't eat that. That's not kids' food, that kind of mentality. So being able to cook your veggies down into your tomato sauce is a really great way to incorporate them without changing up the traditional style of food. You can also offer these things as toppings as well to if you want to try it, but it's great to just have it in there. You're including those extra nutrients and it's not, you know, taking over that pizza that they are so comfortable and, you know, with. You can always tell them while they're eating, hey, guess what? There's zucchini and there's carrots and there's squash or whatever you in. Did you know that? We'll be like, oh, wow, cool. But also, like I said, you can always leave them aside as toppings too if they are feeling, you know, really outgoing that day to put it on as topping. Also, I find that when I make tomato sauce at home, I like to make a lot because I'm buying like a big can that's, you know, of crushed tomato that's 80 cents. So I'm not going to just use a little bit of it. You know, I just make the whole thing. I grate, you know, more than I need to. And then this can double as a really great sauce for lasagna and a really great sauce for spaghetti. So, you know, cook once and then have 3 meals. That's what it's all about, right? Our time is our energy, is our money, is our patience. So the more we can get done in one fell swoop, I mean, that's a real score. So I've got my tomato sauce. It's bubbling. It's all cooking down. I'm going to turn it a little lower so I don't have to worry about it. And then I'm just going to kind of get started on, or not get started, but I'm going to pull my English muffins over and my cheese over, kind of swap over to building and preparing my pizza. But I would love for you to at least think to yourself, you know, when it comes to planning, you know, think and ask yourself, how do I use planning to create healthier and more appealing meals? That could be instead of using, you know, English muffins. Michael's like, wow, I have these really awesome zucchinis. I can cut them into slices and make pizza bites. That's awesome. If you don't think that these whole grain English muffins are going to work, you know, how can I make this work well for me and my kiddos? How can I plan ahead? And also maybe I use pita for these pizzas and then I can use that whole grain pita in a snack tomorrow. You know, how can I stretch these ingredients over multiple recipes as well? Michael, where are you at in your process right now? You've got your
I keep muting myself so you don't. Yeah. So I've got my sauce is cooking nice and neat, and I have my zucchini base. So I am ready to decorate with you.
Yes. Awesome. Cool. So another thing that I absolutely love about this, and something that just whenever I do these in classes, it's always a hit because kids can really take ownership over their pizza. I mean, it's their pizza, right? It's not one big pizza that we're ordering, we're eating. Everyone should get their own, you know, pizza, quote unquote, dough, whatever you decide it is, and be able to put their sauce on with helpful direction, you know, from the helpful adult. You know, you don't want too much sauce, it might get soggy. You don't want to put too much toppings, it might get soggy. No one wants soggy pizza. That's usually our key message when we're making pizza together. And it's really great because having them be like, oh, I want that, and you know, I want to decorate it, so I'm going to use more toppings. Really, really cool time to introduce mushrooms. I highly recommend sauteing them first, but I found a lot of kids that I've worked with utilizing this recipe has really opened up the mushroom door for them because they just want to decorate. So they'll put more stuff on there without even thinking about it. When it comes out of the oven, they can recognize that it's theirs. You know, that type of ownership is really, really, really powerful. And so let's see. While we're doing, I'm gonna move this aside. I'm gonna flip swap. I'm keeping my toppings very simple because again, this is my, I highly recommend just using whatever, you know, whatever you find to be tasty, in season, desirable, delicious, etc. Tomato, if in case anyone was curious, is actually my favorite food. Michael, what's yours?
My favorite food or my favorite vegetable or something?
Your favorite food. My favorite food just happens to be tomatoes.
Oh man, that's such an raspberries. I'm so excited for my raspberries to come in the fall.
Oh, I'm jealous that you have raspberries. Raspberries remind me of my grandmother. She had a beautiful raspberry garden in her yard. That
also, the thing I wanted to throw out is if anybody does have any little bits of space that they've been thinking about a garden, the squash and zucchini in Colorado just cannot stop growing. So like if you want like really bang for your buck on gardening next year, or even this year, it's not too late. Squash and zucchini, just constant fruit bearing out here. So
that is a really good tip, Michael. It really is, because squash and zucchini, I feel like, are so underrated. Like putting them into a sauce, spaghetti sauce, lasagna, pizza. I grate them and put them into my talking. And when you talk too much, you end up not being able to so well. I like to put grated zucchini and squash into taco meat mix. Mix it with ground turkey and beans, you know. You can hide it, in a quesadilla, in a cheese and black bean quesadilla maybe. There's great ways where you can hide it and it's just there, nutrients, not, you know, in your kid's face, but it's there. It's a slow way to introduce it. So that is awesome. Instead of just having, in our mini pizza recipe, we do red sauce and then we do the sauteed veggies and then cover it with cheese. Here, my veggies are just existing right in here. And I think that's just so nice and pleasant. I like that. Now I'm gonna put my shredded mozzarella cheese. If you don't like mozzarella, or you have, you know, they have a really great deal on cheddar, send it with the cheddar. That is totally fine. If you want to put pepperoni on top, that's great. Like I said, mushrooms sauteed, awesome time to saute mushrooms, introduce those. I'm probably putting a little extra cheese on here because I shredded it and I don't want to stick it back in the fridge. That will be our extra cheese secret. Kids definitely will try to go a little crazy with their cheese. But the idea here is, I know like my niece would take probably 30 minutes to do this, very particular, wants it to look so pretty, which is kind of great because this can double as an activity, you know, not just eating lunch, but you're actually working together, doing an activity together, and that can be really great. And then I just sliced up a little tomato, extra tomato. That's just, you know, the big love of my life is tomato, so I put a big piece on that one. And that's it, really. Herbs, Michael, if you wanted to put extra herbs on there, you could. What kind of toppings are you working with?
I am, can you hear me or am I on mute?
You're all set, we can hear you.
Perfect. Awesome. I am doing more of a bruschetta style pizza in that I did not have time to shred my cheese. So I'm just doing nice thick lines of matzah on top. And so I'm creating this little, I don't know, I'm excited to show it in a second. I'm hoping it'll be delicious. I'm expecting it to, Brigid.
Well,
if not,
that's just as important because we eat with our eyes first, right? So if it looks good, chances are I'm at least gonna try it.
I'm actually gonna go grab some more herbs. So if you wanna keep talking, I'll be in my garden.
I'll be in my garden. Man, I wish that I had like a garden classroom. That would be so great.
Virtual background that he has, but it's no, that's real life.
Real life, yeah. So once we have all of our ingredients, we've prepared our meal. As I said earlier, we can also be thinking about how we can prepare them in different ways. So earlier I showed you that I had my, my yellow bell pepper, because I thought I might put, actually I forgot about it. I'm gonna put a piece on each of these. The rest of these sticks, I'm not gonna leave it just half cut. I'm gonna chop up the rest of my bell pepper into sticks. This is a great way, again, to utilize this during a snack time or for another meal. So while you have your stuff out, go ahead and send it, chop everything, and then you might have all of your snacks ready for the rest of the week, which is really great. And when small children are developing their palates, it's really best to offer a variety of foods, of course, but also prepare them in different ways. So now we have bell pepper, on top of our pizza. We have bell pepper chopped up maybe in our tomato sauce. We have bell pepper raw to dip into a dip. That's a really great way to introduce kids to food and reintroduce them, and then reintroduce them, and then reintroduce them. Because kids, it's not a one and done. It's something that you have to continually do over and over and over again. So if you can prep it all again in one fell swoop, man, that just like makes things so much easier on us, which is just as important.
All right, Bridget.
All set?
There we go. All set.
Nice.
So I got a layer of the sauce on the bottom, then I have layers of cheese, and then I have larger cut veggies and herbs on top. So just going all out on it.
And I kind of imagined, so that's really cool. You did like a zucchini pizza boat, which is awesome. I was imagining like slicing the zucchini into rounds and just like grilling it or roasting it and putting a piece of cheese on top with a little bit of sauce underneath, like a zucchini bite. So now that's like,
in retrospect, that would have been a lot smarter.
No, but, I love the pizza boat.
What I would also say that I should have done, if you want to do it this way, is you should dig yourself a tiny bit of a canal in that if you're going to have it. That way it could more sit, because Yeah, mine's more of like a, street meat kind of sub that you'd get. It's not exactly the most beautiful, but it'll be
I think
lovely
it's
to
great
eat.
though. And I think that if the kids saw it and they were served a zucchini boat, I feel like my niece would be like, I'm a pizza pirate, that's fun. It's different. And you can always try it in a different way next time. So are you going to grill it, or are you going to stick it in the oven, do you think? Are you thinking you're going to eat it raw, or what's your game plan for broiling maybe?
I am going to add some more meat. I am going to get it on the grill, and I'm going to close the grill and just let it bake in there for a bit. By the way, one little thing that I thought was very interesting, and I think I actually picked it up from a Cooking Matters training, was about the concept of when a kid says they want PB&J, or a kid wants a cracker or something, it always tastes the same. Every single time it's tasting the same. But if you're giving them a blueberry for the first time, that blueberry could be very tart, could be very sweet, be anywhere in the middle. And so that's just, one of the things when kids are saying they might not like fruit or something, it could just be that that variability threw them off or something. And so it wasn't actually one that you did with ELV, but when I was on that you guys were presenting was talking about that.
I love that. Just like every human being is different, every blueberry is different. So beautiful. And that's so true. That's why we have to keep trying things. Yes, we have to keep trying things. Really think, Michael, I'm going to try the zucchini boat. If anyone else loves the boat idea like I'm loving it, check out our recipes online. We have a Cooking Matters recipe for a tuna boat, but it's a cucumber tuna boat, and it is super tasty and, again, really fun to make. And then lastly, we've gone through our planning and our shopping, and then our preparing, and now serving. So thinking about how we serve foods can also help us keep them healthy. So simple changes to our normal routines, like maybe not keeping salt on the table, not keeping soy sauce on the table, or whatever condiments you usually have out. And then maybe using fruit instead of syrup as a topping. Or even if you want to have, maple syrup with something, or you want to have ketchup, using really small serving containers for a controlled amount for your condiments for each of the kids. Just making sure that you're kind of setting up their choices for success. And my pizzas, I'm going to pop them in the oven at 350 for about 8 minutes, and kind of keep an eye on them. And that's it. We're pretty much just getting that cheese to melt. And if you want to increase or decrease the time process for this, you can always toast your English muffin first, and then you really can just throw it into broil for maybe 30 seconds. So again, saving you a little extra time.
Thanks so much, Brigid. That was really fun. And all looks delicious. I know I am now hungry, and I already ate lunch, but I'm still hungry because that looked amazing. We want to share just a few more tips with you. So I'm going to share my screen again quickly. Brigid just gave a lot of examples of ways that we can get kids involved in the actual cooking, which is great when you're able to do it, but there are lots of other ways to also get kids interacting with food that doesn't necessarily involve cooking, because we probably can't cook with kids every single day. And especially during the pandemic, maybe we're being a bit more careful about that. So you'll see several here listed. Again, involving children in these kind of activities, such as planning meals, shopping, growing and picking food, can really increase that food acceptance and support a positive relationship with food. And also just provides valuable learning opportunities. So you're probably already doing a lot of these things. Maybe you have a play kitchen where kids are able to interact with food and pretend to have a restaurant, or you're growing seeds in your windowsill. All of those things are really great. It could be reading a book about broccoli. That's an exposure. So it's not always about actually eating the food. It could be a variety of these things. We wanted to do one more quick example for you of an activity because activities are a great way to teach children about food. And we have a free toolkit on our website called Exploring Foods Together. Just search Cooking Matters, Exploring Foods Together, and you will find that. And these are food-related activities that are really great because they're a non-threatening way for kids to explore new foods. So we're going to try one here that you can find there. It's called a fruit and vegetable mystery bag. So I asked Michael ahead of time to find a vegetable or a fruit from his garden, keep it a secret from me. And what you would do in your classroom or with the kids in your care is you would stick some kind of fruit or vegetable in a bag. You would ask one child to stick their hand inside of the bag and describe what they feel. So this is a great, it's going to help with some of those social and vocabulary language skills for kids as they are describing, and then all the other kids get to guess as they're giving clues, and then you can take it out and talk about it. So we're going to try it just real quick. So Michael, why don't you describe what you are feeling?
All right. So feels like there's almost multiple pages of something.
Okay.
And like it's ruffly at the end along the edges.
Ooh. That sounds like something that's maybe a little leafy.
Yeah, feels leafy.
Okay. What about size?
Pretty big, honestly, for a leaf, like
Oh.
much bigger than a tree leaf.
What about texture?
Again, it's smooth in the middle, very ruffly, and like almost like one of those feather boas almost at the end.
Oh, that makes me think of the big makes me think dinosaur. Big dinosaur and leaf, which makes me think like dinosaur kale or some kind of kale.
Is kale your guess?
That's my guess. Do you have a guess? No.
Well,
That's my
a
guess.
guess to me. I wish I knew it was
hard.
Here, I'll show it. We'll give Oscar a chance to show off that. Yes, it is indeed kale.
Nice.
You were just eating this the whole time. So
It's a healthy pup. That's great. So this would give you an opportunity. It's good for the teeth. This would give you an opportunity to then have the kids all touch it, talk about it. You can then talk about the color and what it looks like. And then eventually, hopefully, as we're seeing in action, they would get to taste it, wash it up, taste it, and or use it in a meal or a snack coming up. You could do a taste test. But this is a really fun way to discover new foods in your classroom. So that wraps up kind of the bulk of our tips today, but we do want to share with you a few resources before we go. And then we're also going to ask you to take a quick survey just to help us make these trainings better. But first, the resources. So we want to let you know about a great resource for caregivers and families called Text to Live Healthy. This is a free text messaging service. You sign up by texting to 1333, either the word orange for English or naranja for Spanish. And then once you sign up, you'll get text messages about ways to keep you and the kids in your care healthy and active. So great to share with your families as well. And then also want to make sure that you know about Double Up Food Bucks. Are you familiar with Double Up Food Bucks, Michael?
I'm not.
So if you or one of the families that you care for are SNAP eligible, you qualify to get free fruits and vegetables at local farmers markets throughout the state of Colorado, which is excellent. Oops, my slides are skipping ahead of me. So to find the nearest location, you can just text the number that you see on this screen, or you can visit doubleupcolorado.org. Simply put in your zip code and you'll get all the times and locations of markets near you. And then once you are at the market, it's really simple. You take your EBT card to the info booth. They'll give you instructions. You pick out your SNAP eligible foods, and you're getting $1 for fruits and vegetables for every $1 you spend, up to $20 per visit. So it's basically an extra $20 worth of Colorado grown fruits and vegetables that you can get at your local farmers market. So it's really great. And then we do also just want to quickly let you know that we have another rendition of this meal appeal training coming up. So if you have friends or coworkers that couldn't attend today, or if you can attend live today and would like those Colorado credit hours, join us on August 11th, and you can register on our event page that you see here. And then last but not least, thank you guys so much for being here. Cooking Matters is able to offer our classes and trainings for free because we have amazing funders, and those funders want to hear how these trainings are going. And we also use these surveys to help us improve what we do. So this will just take about 5 to 6 minutes. You click on the link that we just put into the chat. They will ask for a program code. So you can just put in that program code. It's the letter E followed by all numbers. So thank you guys so much for taking just a few minutes to do that. And that's all we have for you today. So again, thank you so much. And thank you, Michael, for cooking along with us. It was really fun.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to have my lunch here in a second. And I also just want to add that, so this is very much on the Cooking Matters. They are great. We've had them on for another webinar as well, just about budgeting around food and everything like that. So there are a wealth of resources well beyond meal appeal that you can do with Cooking Matters. And then also tangentially, if anybody is in the Sheridan area and ever wanted to have, their kids come out for chickens and garden, that's really my gig. I was a wildlife biologist. We've dedicated as much of our space as we can to that kind of stuff. So we love it. But no, Cooking Matters, they're wonderful for all of this kind of stuff. So, I definitely recommend checking them out for more than just what we did today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I might have to take you up on that. My daughter would love, she loves chickens.
They make you realize that dinosaurs would be like 1,000 times more terrifying than Jurassic Park.
That's great.
All right. Well, okay. Thank you, everybody, for hopping on. And here in about an hour or two, we are going to be getting you a recording of this presentation today. You are going to be getting a copy of the slides that Amber and Brigid used. You're going to be getting some resources that they sent over us to send out afterwards. Definitely fill out that survey link. There may or may not be some goodies attached. And thank you all so much. Amber, I'll be in touch very shortly after I get some of my stuff cleaned up, just with registration and all that. Awesome.
Great. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you all for hopping on with us, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Everyone, thank you.